Hello and welcome back to Summer's War. I am your host, LDPO3. If you didn't know, RTA thing is ending about 2 days from now. This kind of showed up randomly. I thought it'd at least give us a week notice. It looked like I got a 3-day notice. Also, there is a Hall of Heroes thing going on, the second round. This was like the most depressing time in Summer's War, like, because all of them are pretty bad. When in doubt, just go L&D, unless you already have them. Very underwhelming. The best one on that list, though, was the Water Mermaid. She can counter a lot of other units, just because it cleanses, not really cleanses, but lowers it. It is not bad. Yay, victory! So, but what we're going to do is, at the end of every RTA season, there's something called a balance modification patch, where they're going to go and fix some underused, underwhelming characters, hopefully make them better. And instead of making an hour-long video on this needs a buff and that needs a nerf, we're just going to go ahead and say, these are the worst skills in Summoner's War. Now, the criteria that I'm going to give out immediately is nat 4s and nat 5s only, and no first skills. So the first one on our list, and one that a lot of people agree with, is the Archangel's second skill, Archangel's Blessing. Ariel, Eladriel, and even Artemiel. The second skill is just a heal, and it's a 3-turn cooldown. It's very underwhelming, very predictable if these are on defense. Put on a heal block, and that skill is completely useless. You're going to compare that to the now 2-star Second Awakening Lulu and Friends, who has a second skill that will cleanse, add immunity, heal the target, and then heal itself, and on a 2-turn cooldown. You also have Fran that everyone else uses on a 3-turn cooldown, which will heal and cleanse. And for the most part, Lulu and Friends, it's just a million times better than Ariel and No Friends. Next on our list, basically all the Valkyrias. You can go ahead and say the first skill sucks too. But for the most part, the fire, water, and light one, they have this weird one with max HP, so the damage isn't actually that great unless the enemy has high max HP. Each one of those will have a 1 debuff, and the debuff is not too impressive as it is, and a single target 1 debuff for 2 turns. I mean, at least Vanessa 1 has a defense break, but because of this part, the damage is actually not that good unless you really ruin her against that. And so Camilla is one of them, where you just ruin her super tank, put her on destroy, and you don't even care how much damage these actually do. It just pokes away at their health until they die. Going with the light and the dark one, these have higher multipliers, but less things that it actually does. So instead of actually giving a debuff, it just heals a proportion of the damage, and then if something dies, you get invincibility. That's not very good. I mean, at least this one will trigger to the third one, because you need this while you're invincible. But, I mean, having that kind of condition is not very, like, people don't use her for that second skill. But they're still a little bit better probably than, Camilla's, where it's just attack speed and then some damage. And if you didn't know, max HP doesn't really work well with destroy runes anyway. Let's just go ahead and say their first skill is pretty bad. It only happens if something dies. I mean, it might be triggered once a game, if you're lucky. Very underwhelming, skill 1, skill 2. On the same boat as that, we got Borgnine the Slayer. So the Slayers, and then the Water Bison, Water M Bison, not an ox looking thing. Second skill, same kind of idea. This one has an extra debuff, but even 1 turn less. So single target, provoke for 1 turn, defense break for 1 turn, damage based on max HP. Which makes this one even more worse is that he only has these 2 attack skills, and they're both single target. So having that 5 only, single target is kind of weird, and that's his only use. It looks like the same thing as if Camilla was on Destroy Runes, without the heal or the cleanse from being, if Camilla gets attacked with a critical hit, it cleanses herself, that kind of thing. So it's everything that Camilla is not. So very underwhelming skill too. And I think the wind one and then the dark one have the same one. Very underwhelming skill. Same, but a little different. One of the other newer units, this was the one that I think needs a buff more than any other unit in the game, just because she is so bad. And it's her karma skill, which is kind of irony. I guess she did something bad in the past Summoner's War game. This whole thing is basically based on this new debuff they didn't even mention. It's actually called Suppression. You can find it in the help menu in your help area that they actually redid. It does whatever this says it does, but not really. So her whole kit is based off of this one skill and based off this one debuff. And the problem is, it doesn't really do this. So what happens is, if the unit has less than 50% HP, I'll get reduced down to 1 HP. It won't even trigger DLMR's Endure buff. I did a whole video on what this does and doesn't do. The other one that really kind of annoyed me was skills with the cooldown. It doesn't work on passives. So if they have a passive skill on a cooldown, the biggest one that is meta is Triana, where she will protect one of her teammates unless you reset that skill. And then obviously it's a skill with the cooldown. You put that on it, it uses it to save its teammate, but it doesn't trigger the actual debuff. And that's like, well, that's a bug. That didn't work. But no. So that's why this is like the worst unit in the game. You can't use her anywhere. I mean, she would have a grade F across the board. You can't use her in dungeons. Can't really use her in PvP or anywhere in scenario. I mean, ridiculous. This thing doesn't work on bosses, doesn't work on a lot of stuff. And then even the AI is literally programmed not to use the second, any skill with a cooldown if they have the suppression debuff. It's really weird. So because of that this skill is so bad and this whole unit is based on this skill, that's why Geo is probably one of the worst units in the game. However, because of the sisters have the same skill, everyone says, this character needs a buff. I don't know too much about the dark one because really no one has a dark one. But one of the worst skills in the game, Karma. Alright, next on our list, we can go with one of our newer units. Let's go with the one we actually just got. Dongbake, Hollow Heroes. Second skill, Melody of Resentment. Now this one's weird. You kind of look at it and go like, okay, what does this do? So basically you use a skill and it's kind of like having 1 dot on the enemy every time they take a turn. And then with a chance for an attack power break, which could be good, could be bad. It goes through immunity, so they have to deal with that problem. However, in my opinion, it might as well be a dot or something multiple dots. Like maybe this was 10%, it'd be a little bit better. But you're basically using a unit and the sole purpose is just to sit there defenseless, and it only does 5% damage per turn. I mean, you can get higher damage output by any other monster basically. The other unit that really has this is the Fire one, who people like. One of the faster buffs in the game. I mean attack bar boosters in the game with this skill. However, when you use a skill, you aren't going to plan on using the second skill. So you're basically using the skill and then waiting for everything to be done. And then on the unfortunate that you get out of this song and you have to play the second song, then you're pretty much screwed. And the way this thing is set up is you'll never get the cooldown back for this skill again. So it doesn't make much sense. Also, if you get stunned while you're playing any of the music, then you get stunned and it stops. So incredibly weak skill to Melody of Resentment. Alright, next on our list, we can say the Dryads. So Contuos has this thing about not knowing what to give a monster for their second skill, so they decided to go with generic AoE, maybe attack bar reduction, maybe attack speed slow, and then see what happens. And so this is one of them. At least this is one that we use, but not because of the second skills, because of the passive. So, in my opinion, these are the incredibly weak second skills. Attack speed slow and attack bar reduction. Not even 100% chance. This is actually one of the skills that kind of throw off the giant, so the giant won't die by the dots from Sath and from, well, Tachi doesn't really do it, but doesn't really die from the dots because you keep pushing the attack bar back. You'll probably hit the giant too many times, and one of the reasons why you're failing, especially if you're early game on the giant speed 12 with the dot team, is because you're just attack bar reducing so much that the giant starts retaliating, killing all your units. I mean, she's basically only good because of her passive and not because of this random AoE second skill that could always do more, and then you'll be fine with it either way. On the same line of that, I mean, you basically have the same skill with the Horus. Horuses. Make a little distinction there. Alright, AoE, attack bar reduction, attack speed slow. I mean, at least the damage increases. This was buffed to attack speed. In my opinion, it still didn't really do that enough. I actually have Almduat. I actually have 2 of them, and I think they were bad. Someone said, okay, put her on arena defense, full despair as fast as possible. If they bring a Tiana in there, you'll just counter it. And you're like, well, if they bring a Tiana in, they're probably not very good at knowing what they're doing. Some people use them in RTA, but it's probably because they don't have something else that's even better. Something that actually does full attack bar reduction, like Changfeng, Poseidon, or, you know, anything like that. Even though you get a lot of turns, in my opinion, you didn't get enough damage. But it's a second skill that's so generic, so weak, that this could have been... This needs a little bit extra something to make it good. It's just a generic second skill that they just give a bunch of these units. Same kind of idea. I didn't pick that one. This guy. The Taoists. Huadam. Huadam second skill. AoE attack bar reduction. Not even this low. So this is very useless. I mean, you're basically putting on despair just for the chance to hit, and doesn't really do much. If you actually compare it to the water version, where it gets a stun, if there was an attack speed slow, this is actually pretty good. This stun is like 100% if it's attack speed slow, and you can combo with other units like Poseidon that does the AoE attack bar slow. So you can combo that, but this one is just, okay, somewhat attack bar, somewhat chance, 30% chance? That's just horrible. Horrible. Keep going. Even the newer units, the Blade Dancers and the Chun-Lis, not this one, the light one, Crescent Blade, same thing, AoE attack speed slow. I mean, you're just basically bringing this one for the damage and hopefully the passive works. However, this doesn't do that much. I mean, I bring a Leo into these anyway, but I'm saying that this second skill, you're just banking on the damage. You don't. This doesn't do anything. It doesn't do enough. So people built the water one, and instantly regret it because they're like, this sucks. I thought there was another one that was pretty bad. Isn't there a spinning bird kit? Oh, maybe because I'm not on the right one. So yeah, the second skill of the Chun-Lis, of the Blade Dancers, AoE slow. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with them. Even like 3-star versions, 3-star units, one that you guys use, but you never use that second skill because it's so bad. Bulldozer. Did you know Bulldozer has an AoE attack bar reduction? I mean, you get this part that does a little bit extra damage, but no one uses it. I mean, you'd rather have the stun on the first skill. And this does actually a good amount of damage. So it's really weird that they just kind of give this generic Oh, it's good. We attack more slow, attack bar reduction, that kind of thing. You're like, alright. I don't know. Kind of generic. Let's go to some single monsters. Trash Jar, Giant Warrior. In the shadow of his brother Skogul, who you probably built like 4 or 5 of them at one point. Skogul, we know, has the rock, but has the passive that backs it up. Defense increased by 50%, cooldown reduction every time you're attacked. This makes him highly threatened, especially if he's by himself. He'll just keep throwing the rocks. The crappy version of that is Trasher's one, where he doesn't get any of that. No defense bonus, no cooldown reduction. Instead, offsets the incoming damage that may cause you to die and instantly gains another turn. This is a lie. Oops. Okay, this is a lie. What happens is he'll offset the first hit of the incoming damage that may cause him to die, just like Garo. So the second hit that comes in, he's dead. He doesn't instantly gain another turn like Triana. He just gets the full attack bar. Remember, that's a big difference. Because if they violent proc, he's dead. So same thing like Garo. Only this is a passive, but not really, because you need to have the rock in the air. So the only time this triggers if the rock is there. It doesn't even say that, huh? When the weapon is not in your hand. So that's kind of a weird saying. Like, this doesn't even have to be passive. This just could be part of this second skill. And it's on a 4-turn cooldown, and because you don't have the Skogul version of the cooldown reduction, you're basically sitting there for 4 turns doing absolutely nothing. Except for this really weak attack bar reduction thing. So, Trashar's passive is trash. Oops. Alright. Next on my list. Where are you? Oh. Let's go this one. So, on Bagelmon's recent video, he pointed this one out. This was actually my first 6-star unit. This motherfucker over here. Someone told me one time, before he had a Nat 5, this guy could solo dungeons because of his shield. It protects him from dying. And I tried him and he died. So, his passive is one of the worst skills in the game. Creates a shield proportionate to his level. Increases attack speed if you're attacked while you have the shield. This skill is anything that's proportional to your level is capped. It's based on your level. Your level is probably going to be maxed at 40. And so the shield is capped at whatever that proportion is. Unfortunately, this shield at this level 40 is like 3,000 HP. You compare that to like a 10k shield from like Kamun, Rena, and a bunch of those units like Bastet. And this is just garbage. It's completely weak. And then just because you get one speed slow, who cares? I mean, you compare this to the brother Halfis, which we all know, if you get invincibility, you start stealing a good amount of max HP from the other units, the opposing players, and all of them. And it doesn't have to be the invincibility triggered by the passive. It could be any invincibility. So one of the proposals that you can do for this guy, if that shield is active, or any shield on it is active, then he should be able to either drain like 5% health, similar to Dongbake. Something like that. Not as crazy as he's not absorbing health, he's just draining or like making the enemy lose health. Or you can even do, this doesn't even have to be attack speed slow if he's attacked. You can just, because the shield's on it, any other player on their turn will have attack speed slow, attack break, something like that. Or you can even have it where the shield's active and then he will auto revenge as long as the shield is still there. Something like that. I mean, this could be so much better, but as it is now, the shield is too weak. Attack speed slow is not that big a deal, especially for one turn. And in general, he's just, this is one of the worst passive skills in the game. Alright, moving on. Let's go with one of the ones I'm more biased into. Not you, but let's go with the other ones. So, Helena. Human form, second skill, Swaying Flame. This one was actually buffed. And so what it does is absorbs attack bar, total of 50% divided equally among the enemies that are still alive. However, this absorbs part is not that great. The conditions of that, they can't have immunity, and it can't glance. So if you're fighting water units, if you fighting units with immunity, you don't get any of the attack bar back. And if you're stuck in this form, you're a sitting duck and you're pretty much dead. That's why no one ever uses it. Sometimes it's fun, especially in the certain situations where they do like wind, fire, and then like light units. Then you can probably use this, and it's just kind of a fun thing. But in the same way, you can't glance. So you can't bring this into Carcano teams, because of that. So sitting duck, one hit, will die. Very weak. This is kind of weird. So human form, can't click on these. You have to go unicorn form, then you can click on them. Now, Amelia, second skill. Do you even know what it does? Yes, one turn provoke on a single target and then counterattack on yourself for 2 turns. Now the counterattack thing is gone basically the next turn because you switch into the human form and then you do something else. So that's why this is kind of dumb. The provoke thing almost never works. It's not even 100% chance, and it's only on one target. And it's really weird because you don't really have this unit specifically designed to be one of those type of units. It's not like Rakan. It's not like what I think Josephine or one of the other ones that will provoke and then have them hit it into a counterattack. So this is like a really weird skill to use. The only time you would use it is if one of your allies is on the brink of death and you know that unit's going to attack it, and this is a last ditch effort, and then it never works for me anyway. So it's kind of like one of the worst skills, in my opinion, in the game. You're comparing a one target non 100% provoke and then a counterattack debuff into something that is an AoE cleanse with a defense buff. I mean, you kind of get the immunity already, but yeah, that's your trade-off. Even the light one, which I actually have also in the same sort of situation where this skill sucks, and you're trying to trade that off of something that is AoE cleanse, AoE heal, AoE anti-crit, and then you get the immunity. You're comparing that to a single target provoke that's not even 100%. It's just dumb. And then, yeah, I mean, I try to use her as much as I can, but it just doesn't work too well. Alright, let's just finish up with this one group that I really would like to see buffed. They've been around long enough and no one uses them anymore. Samurais. One of the fake fives that I got. I don't even remember which color. Their fourth skill is just total garbage. It's a low multiplier. It's so easily counterable. You can just stun them. I mean, it gets a shield, but there's no immunity, so it's not the big deal. And they're pretty weak as it is in the terms of health, that you can pretty much one-shot them even through the shield, especially with your new Carcano, which is meta. It's very, very weak. So one of the things that were proposed by good old YDCB a long time ago, auto trigger. Just like the Drunken Masters, maybe even like Rauk or any of those ones that'll train into another one. Even like some of the Ryus, which will do the Shoryuken into the fireball. Have that with these. First skill, second skill, third skill. Small chance to activate the Supreme Sky Wolf. Supreme Sky Wolf will trigger immediately. I mean, this multiplier is already lower than most of these anyway, even with the light and dark ones. I mean, you're looking at this thing. Each attack deals extra damage if the enemy is under harmful effects. Extra damage if the target is light. And then, what was this? Oh, that's just 100% chance for its Supreme Sky Wolf. This doesn't have to be 100%. You can always change it. But for the most part, this skill does more damage than this skill. And that's why it's kind of weird. So if anything, just make it trigger. I mean, it'll basically be like how Teshar is now. Teshar, if you didn't know, they changed the third skill into a passive that will activate on the hit of the first one. And if it kills something, then that passive is cooldown is reset. So they can do that with this. Attack with one of these skills, chance to activate, boom, third skill activated. And then it'd be kind of cool for this one, Revenge. I mean, it doesn't have to do the Revenge one either. 10%, or let's see, 20% chance goes up to 30% for this to trigger, and then AoE, boom. That would be cool. The way it is now, these are just not even relevant. I mean, basically, you just bring like Kaki or one of the other Animushas. So there you have it. Those are the worst skills in my opinion, at least for the 4 stars and 5 stars. There might be some other ones I missed. But anyway, that's most of them, at least I had on my list. So thank you for watching. I am LPEO Tree. Have a good night, have a good day, and have a good bye.